the year before that. And so because he can't run on his record, Hope and Change has now become attack, defame, and blame. He's going to try to divide this country. He's going to try to distract this country. He's going to distort what we are offering in order to try and win this election by default. And guess what? We're not going to let him get away with it, are we? Thank you, man. I'm not going to repeat what he said. Look at where we are. ACS. I just met Mike Shenago. And I just met Mike Shenago's son, Mike Shenago. He just told me about their family business. And he told me about the 189 employees they have. This is what we call an ESOP. This is a small business that's successful, that is shared and owned by many of its employees. This is the American dream. The American dream is if you have an idea, and if you work hard, and if you work at a business, you play by the rules, you can get ahead, and guess what? These guys built their business.
That's right.
Now let's take a look at this example. Let's take a look at the great conveyor product they make here. This is where most of our jobs come from. Most of the jobs in America, almost 2/3 of our jobs come from these successful small businesses. This looks like any other part of America. I come from Janesville, Wisconsin. We have an industrial park. It looks just like this. It's businesses that are creating jobs and advancement and better take-home pay and job security for most of the workers in America. And this business and its employees pay their taxes as people. President Obama is promising that come this January, the top effective tax rate on businesses like this goes up to 44.8%. This one tax increase that he's promising doesn't even pay for 10% of his proposed deficit spending. You see this idea that all the geniuses are in Washington, this idea that we can just take more from workers, take more from businesses, and spend it in Washington, if this idea worked, we would be entering a golden age along with Greece. You know, overseas, which where I come from means Lake Superior, the Canadians just lowered, where this cheesehead comes from too, the same thing for him. That means other countries are lowering their tax rates on their businesses. Okay, why does this matter to us? 95% of the world's consumers live overseas. The product they make here relies on a global economy. They compete with the Germans, they compete with Asia in making this very product right here. And when the Canadians lower their tax rate to all of their job creators to 15%, when the international tax rate average on our competitors is 25%, and President Obama is promising that the top tax rate on these successful small businesses goes above 40% in January, guess what happens? When we tax our job creators a lot more than our foreign competitors tax theirs, they win, we lose, and we can't stand for that.
No!
We've got to get this country back on the right track. We've got to get behind our small businesses. We've got to make sure that they have what they need to succeed and compete and grow jobs. This is what our 5-point plan for economic growth for a stronger middle class is all about. You see, it is not enough for us to simply complain about the president's failed record. It's not enough for us to complain about all of his broken promises, whether it's the broken promises on Obamacare, or the broken promises on job creation, or the broken promises with stimulus, or the broken promises on cutting the deficit in half. We owe you an alternative. We owe you a choice so that you can make a clear decision on November the 6th. That's what our 5-point plan is all about. I see the hats around here. We have a lot of energy in America. You have a lot of coal in Virginia. Let's take use of that energy. Let's use our own energy and put people back to work. And this decade. That's point number one. That creates jobs. That lowers our gas prices, that lowers our heating prices, that lowers our electricity prices, that increases take-home pay and job security. And by the way, on day one, you know what we're going to say? All that oil in Canada that President Obama's preventing to come to this country, and we'll go to China instead under his leadership, we're going to change leaders, and that Keystone Pipeline is going to create those jobs so we can get the North American energy independence. Second thing, you know, we have lost over 600,000 manufacturing jobs in America since the president took office. We have to have a strong manufacturing sector because that's a backbone of our economy. You can't just have a vibrant economy by just servicing. You have to manufacture. We lost 38,000 manufacturing jobs in the last 2 months alone. A lot of people are out of work. A lot of people are in between jobs. A lot of people thought they would have the same job for most of their lives, but when the factory left, which is what happened in my hometown, there was nothing to make up for it. So for those people who are in between jobs, for those people who are in temporary jobs who want full-time jobs, for those 5.5 million Americans that the government doesn't even count anymore who gave up looking for work, we need to give them the ability to get the skills they want so they can get the job and the career they need for the 21st century. We've got to fix our education system and get these workers good skills so they can get good jobs with good take-home pay. That's point number 2.
Yeah. That's right.
We also have to have trade that works for America. I was just talking to Mike over here on the factory floor, and he was telling me about the fierce competition they have overseas. The fierce competition from countries like China or Germany. You see, when they steal our intellectual property, when they steal our products, when they unfavorably or unfairly favor their industries, that puts us at a disadvantage. We need to stand up for that. We need to make sure that we have trade that works for America so we can make more things here, grow more things here, and sell them overseas. That's incredibly important so that we can have good paying jobs with good recovery. So that's what you need to do to make sure that when 95% of the world's consumers are overseas, we are a country that can compete with anybody if we have a level playing field. So let's go get that level playing field so we can compete with anybody and grow those jobs.
Yeah. That's right.
And there's one issue that I've focused on much of my time in Congress, serving with great guys like Bob Goodlatte. And that is, we have got to stop spending money we just don't have. We can't keep doing this for our children and our grandchildren. We know without a shred of doubt that this country is on the wrong path. This is not even refutable. We know that for the first time in the history of this nation, this generation of adults is consigning the next generation to a diminished future. We have a moral obligation to preserve the American dream, not only for ourselves, but for our children and our grandchildren. That's why we have to get this debt and deficit under control and balance the budget and pay off our debt, so our kids have a shot at the American dream. And while we look overseas, and as we turn on the TV and witness on our TV screens the absolute unraveling of the Obama foreign policy, what we are witnessing is the projection of weakness.
That's right.
And that projection of weakness emboldens our adversaries and scares our allies. You see, if we look weak, our adversaries are more willing and more brazen to test us, and our allies are less willing to trust us. It's a dangerous world. We are at war with terrorists.
Tell them like it is.
Let's not forget that. And when you see this administration's proposal for these devastating defense cuts, that not only costs us jobs here in Virginia, but it undermines our national security, our primary responsibility of the federal government, and it projects weakness. If we show that we're willing to cut our defense so much, then that makes it look like we are a superpower in decline. America stands for good. America stands for freedom and democracy. We believe that the best way to keep peace for us here at home, to keep prosperity overseas, is to engage in a doctrine we call peace through strength, and that means you don't gut your military. Virginians understand this. And again, let's never forget that small businesses are the engine of economic growth. They're the backbone of our economy. The workers here at ACS, the entrepreneurs here, the people who put in the hard work, who come in at weekends to make sure that their product's going out the door, that's what makes America work. And when you see the federal government passing regulation after regulation, whether it's regulations on coal, or regulations on small banks, or regulations on